I actually getting mad that I did what she does.
No,
that's shadow work. You want to talk about shadow work?
Josh,
that's shadow work right there.
That's shadow work right there because you want to talk about me being self-deprecating.
I do it all the time.
And you just said some wild shit about yourself.
I acknowledge it.
Wild, bro.
So just because you acknowledge it does not mean that you...
That's what shadow work is to acknowledge the shadow and learn to live with it.
But then you get on me about it.
One of those two things are not mutually exclusive.
All right, everybody. We are back for the Can't Afford Therapy podcast. My name is Antoinette.
I'm SaVon.
And I'm Josh.
And we are here again this fine week with more topics, more things to discuss. And of course, we're going to start with our feelings wheel. I'd like for SaVon to actually start.
You want me to kick it off?
I would love for you to kick it off.
Let's do it. I had a word. And then it escaped me. I feel, how do I feel? Let me really think about how I feel. I need to start cheating again and like figuring out how I feel before I come on the mic.
I recognize the value of that. I recognize it. Like once I get that in my hand, I'm like, fuck, I should.
Because it's a lot to process,
so
honestly.
Many colors and there's a lot going on.
I feel like all I see is the negative words when I have the pillow in my hand. Because it only has one pie part that's positive.
Yeah.
Everything else is like dying.
Let's not judge it. It is what it is.
I feel eager.
Oh.
I feel eager.
What are you eager about?
I'm eager.
Or for?
I'm eager for this episode because I have no knowledge.
I can't stand you. Okay. I love you.
I have no knowledge in what the fuck we're about to dive into.
I'm eager because I have no knowledge.
Yeah.
I heard you.
I'm
I
eager
love
to
it.
see where this goes.
Okay. Did you read the outline?
No.
I'm angry.
I don't really read.
I love it.
The outline is for you.
The outline is for all of us.
The outline
is
for you.
Offline conversation.
I promise you.
Antoinette is about to hate me for saying this, but I'm so glad that that's how you show up because it makes it so entertaining.
Who? Me?
You.
Oh, what do you mean? Like that's who I am, bro.
I appreciate it. It creates a necessary friction.
We have to decide what this podcast, are we trying to entertain or are we trying to offer resources? Y'all get on my nerves.
Why wouldn't we do both?
There's a little bit of preparation involved in providing resources. Maybe pass me that feelings wheel real quick.
You do it.
All right. I am annoyed.
Infuriated.
I bet you are.
I am bitter.
Hey, read that
Not
shit.
about you. And I am aggressive. That's where I'm at.
Let's do it.
So
I'm feeling playful. I'm feeling grateful. And I'm feeling dismayed.
Dismayed. That's just a good word.
I know. I seen it. I'm not even sure if I feel it.
Yeah, I don't even think you do.
I think
that you just wanted to say it.
It's because I'm feeling playful.
Oh, God.
I like that.
All right. Well, this week we are back. I'm going to, utilize my outline to help guide the conversation, which I find to be very helpful. We're back to...
I'm glad you do.
Passive aggressive right there. You see that? That was master level passive aggression.
I'm not being passive about it.
I'm glad one of us
Just
does.
straight aggression. Yes, this week we are going to talk about shadow work. And I have a feeling, since Josh, please hold up your book for those on Patreon. I have a feeling that because Josh has this book, he knows a little bit something about Because Josh is holding this book up, he knows a little something about shadow work. What's the book?
This is called The Red Book.
By who?
By my man Carl Jung.
And who is Carl Jung?
Carl Jung is like one of the forefathers of modern psychology and like psychoanalytics.
Yes. SaVon,
yes.
When you hear shadow work, what do you think that is?
What do I? Yo, don't say it with a smirk though. Like ask me with a straight face when you ask me about some real shit.
I just can't. I can't help but smile when I look at you.
Don't smile when you ask me these questions.
Joy.
Though. You know what I'm saying?
You bring me joy. Come on.
What I hear, I don't hear shit, bro. I ain't gonna lie. No, doing work with the unconscious mind.
Wait, is that what you hear?
That's what I hear.
Oh my God, SaVon, that's the fuck it. Keep going. What else
just
do you
hear
think?
Doing work without you like thinking of something. It's in the shadow. So
with the unconscious mind. Did you Google that?
No.
Be honest. You have your phone on your lap.
I'll show you.
Okay. What's that say? You have shadow work up. He fucking read it. All right.
He cheated.
I did. I'm
All
not
right,
gonna
shadow work, y'all.
Antoinette is fed the fuck.
lie. I know.
I'm ready to go.
It's okay.
All right, according to Medical News Today, shadow work is a type of psychotherapy that focuses on the shadow self, which is the parts of your psyche that people often keep hidden, such as trauma and resentment, etc. The shadow work, the shadow work meaning is as follows. Working with your unconscious mind to uncover the parts of yourself that you repress and hide from yourself and others. This can include trauma or parts of your personality that you subconsciously consider undesirable. Anyone can do shadow work on their own, but shadow work is at the heart about developing self-awareness and ultimately self-acceptance and compassion. Bunch of words right there, right?
A lot of
of
syllables.
words. So effects of your shadow self. The shadow self, again, is like in regular everyday terms, it's the shit that you either know to be true about yourself or you subconsciously know to be true about yourself because you project onto other people about it.
Yeah.
And it's the things that you don't fuck with. It's the things that you're like a little shameful about, or you know that they're quote unquote undesirable, or that you need to work on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the effects of your shadow self, the shadow may cause you to judge others. The shadow might have you pointing out other people's flaws. And the shadow could instigate that you often will play the victim. And these are a reflection of our own insecurities and, again, projecting them onto others as an act of repression. If you find something undesirable in others, you can pretend it's something you simply don't like in another person rather than not liking it about yourself. Right? I'm a Libra, so we are often the judge and the jury. And so there's a lot of shadow work that we need to be doing because not that I'm into stars and moons, as Mandy would say, but I will say that a lot of Libras are able to see both sides of things, are really compassionate and diplomatic. And we are that way, I think, or at least I'll speak for myself, because we often want to be the best versions of ourselves, or at least project that into the world of like, this is who I am well-rounded, I'm this, I'm that. And so when we judge folks, it's because we see things that are out of balance. We're able to identify it very quickly. But I feel that for me, I'm able to identify it very quickly and judge it because it's something that I notice within myself that I don't want others to know that actually exists in me. And there's a woman on Twitter, just to keep going, and then I'll be quiet. Dr. Nicole LaPera. Do you know her at all? Do you know her?
No.
Child, she be putting out these fire tweets.
Oh, I've seen her work. I've come. Yeah, she's almost like viral.
Yes,
she does threads. Right?
She does threads,
Okay,
and she's like pew pew pew, and you're just like whoa. And
she goes off.
She goes the hell off. She's a psychotherapist as well, licensed, but she
White
goes
lady, blonde
white
hair.
lady. It's called the Holistic Psych.
Yes, I'm familiar with her work.
She ain't no joke. And here's a little bit of thread now. And she gave me this idea because I was like, what topics are we going to talk about? And then I said, let me go ahead over and talk to Nicole real quick. So she said, the messages we get from our parents, culture, peers in our early life causes us to repress aspects of who we are. If we're told something we do or who we are is wrong or to be punished, we learn to reject or abandon those parts of ourselves. The truth is, we all have dark aspects or traits in ourselves we believe are shameful or wrong. These are called our shadow. The more detached from our shadow self we are, the more we project these parts of ourselves onto others. When we don't acknowledge and learn to accept these aspects of ourselves, we're at war internally. Without a true self-identity, we are disconnected from core values and enter jobs, relationships, and situations from an unconscious autopilot place. We can't see the lack our self-awareness and connection to our authentic shadow selves is causing and that it's causing a lot of suffering. Shadow work is about integration. It's about taking the fragmented aspects of who we are and who we're becoming to be fully connected. Child. So I want to talk about the shadow, our shadow selves. And I have not done this work where like I'm specifically sitting down and be like, okay, me and my shadow are going to meet up. We're going to talk. But I feel like that anytime I'm doing self-work, I'm dealing with an aspect of my shadow. That's my belief.
Yeah.
And so I have stuff written down around ways to do shadow work. And first and foremost, it's like, get a goddamn therapist, child, because you might need some help with it. But here on Can't Afford Therapy, many of us can't afford a therapist. So I'm hoping, if y'all are willing, one, to just first give me some ideas or whatever, just let me know what you feel, what comes up for you after hearing what I just read. And then I want us to do some shadow work in real time.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with that.
Go for it.
I'm in.
All right. So what the hell did all that mean to you?
So what you just read, I mean, that's like super classic, like Jungian psycho, like analytics. Like
did you say youngin, like a youngin?
Jungian.
Oh, the
Jungian.
the doctor.
It's a way of thinking.
Okay.
Like he kind of like, he's the one that came up with the concept of the shadow. So the idea behind it is that there's these aspects of ourselves that are almost primordial. Like that's one aspect of the shadow is our primitive selves. And those primitive parts of ourselves tend to not be very cohesive with what we would consider civilized society. And so those parts of ourselves we shun, we push them away, and then society and culture can actually create a bigger shadow within us, because it can, based on the times and what's happening, different parts of ourselves can get shunned, can get pushed away, can be told, can get negative, feedback. And then we, just like what was described, will be like, oh shit, I'm being a little vain, which is also confidence, right? But you're being that, and then all of a sudden now you're kind of pushing that away. You're pushing that away. And then you then, again, like you read, project that on the people around you. And something I read, I don't know if it was in Men and His Symbols or if it was the Red Book, but the idea of the further you are from your shadow, the harder it is to see your light. And the idea is that like you need to be close to your shadow. You need to bring your shadow as close as possible, because that's when you feel whole and you emotionally feel like you're in touch with who you are.
What does it mean to be close to your shadow? Does it mean to just accept your shadow self as like, oh, that's fine, that's who I am, take it or leave it? Or
for me, because I think I want to read more into it to really understand the kind of Carl Jung's perspective on it. But from what I've interpreted and what I understand based on like the work that I've done, it's to acknowledge it first, to say these are the aspects of myself that I repress, and then to see how you can make those work for you in real time. What about those aspects of myself that I dislike can I use to my advantage? Can I use in everyday life and appreciate them and find a gratitude for the fact that they exist in me, and then use them, and we work side by side, me and my shadow, as opposed to trying to hide it and lock it away in some kind of closet and pretend like it doesn't exist. Because the more I do that, the more I'm going to be reminded in it by other people. So if someone else does it, I'm always going to be reminded like, oh, fuck, I got something locked in the closet myself. Now this person is reminding me of that, and it's going to trigger me. And I'm going to then subconsciously, I'm going to treat that person bad, or I'm going to not be nice to that person, or I'm not going to be nice to myself, or I'm not. So the idea is that the closer you are to your shadow, the more accepting you become of your shadow, and the more you integrate it into your daily life. So I don't want to start going into what I do, because I want us to do the shadow work before we get there, so then I can bring these examples up. But I think I love this topic. I love the idea of the shadow. I love the idea of working on those parts of ourselves, and I've been doing it my entire life without knowing it. And then, especially now, I'm in school for psychology at the moment, which is one of the reasons why I am so fucking deep in a lot of this stuff. Is that now I'm like, oh shit, I've been doing this whole time. I've been doing it, and I just didn't recognize it. And I think the version that I've been doing is like gladiator school. I'm doing it in a way where it's getting a lot of cuts, a lot of bruises, a lot of beatings, and I think the way that we're going to learn to do it by way of the workshopping we're going to do here together is a much softer and gentler way. And I look forward to kind of sharing that with our listeners and to experiencing it.
What about you, SaVon?
When I first heard it, the word that came or stuck out to me, or a word that stuck out to me, was insecurity. I feel like, it seems like it could be interchangeable a bit or synonymous with some type of insecurities. And so I'm curious to do the workshop because, unlike Josh, this is completely new to me. So you have somebody who's very experienced and knowledgeable in this subject, and then you have a Blake Canvas in me who has no idea and will learn something new by the end of this episode, which led me to say I'm eager because there was a sense of eagerness for me to, be enlightened almost by what this is. Like, subconsciously, I have always acknowledged that there is some form of a shadow. Maybe I didn't word it or identify it as, hey, this is my shadow. But I always known, and I think anybody who's self-aware or in tune with their emotions or, just conscious of who they are as a person, that there are parts of you that you don't feel the best about, the parts of you that you don't identify with, but it is a part of you. Is like, hey, this is not me per se, but it's a part of me in a certain way. So I think is the concept is very interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening may not be familiar with it. So I'm also curious to see what they're able to take away from it as well.
Okay.
Before we move on, I wanted to share a quote from Carl Jung that I think can speak like very detailed into what the idea of the shadow is
Okay.
and what it means to separate yourself from the shadow versus be close to it. And I think that this speaks to it pretty well. He says the idea here is that an incursion from one's shadow self can break apart the limiting structures of one's persona or ego ideal and open one to creativity and change. Indeed, in spite of and even because they are rejected by the ego, there are many positive aspects of the shadow self. Only by accepting the evil within us can we prevent it from harming and controlling us. Jung writes, thus, we probably have to accept our evil without love or hate, recognizing that it exists and must have its share in our life. In doing so, we deprive it of the power it has to overwhelm us. And I think that speaks to the idea of like, we have this preconceived notion of what it means to stay away from our shadow, and we think that it makes us better. But in reality, the more we take it, we harness it, we look at it, and we keep it close, the more we can make sure it doesn't do anything insidious to us.
Yeah, I think a big part about keeping it close is understanding it. What does it need? Right? Why are these feelings coming up? So, for instance, if your shadow self is like, yo, I am fucking angry often. Like things make me so angry. And you sit down with it and you're like, okay, this is a thing that's in me. Why is it there? What do I need? Why is this anger? What is it fueled from? And then it's like, okay, well, what do I need? Do I need to be heard? Do I need to be loved? Do I need to be seen? And so as you sit with it and you observe the why that shadow exists, then you're able to be like, oh, I can give my shadow what it needs to help like keep it a little bit at bay. Or the keeping it close is not, I want to make this very clear. Keeping it close is not to, what is the word? Enable it. It's not to just like say, because a lot of people are like, it drives me crazy. This is who I am, what I am, Popeye, take it or leave it. And that is not shadow work. Acknowledging that it's there, cool. But you also have to do the work aspect of making sure that it is not doing anything insidious to other people or to yourself, right? So there's a couple prompts on betterup.com. And so one of the ways that you can do shadow work on your own, one of them is that you can write a journal. Surprise, surprise. And so it says, do not censor yourself when you're doing this journal writing. Write the shit down that you think that you can't say out loud, that you don't feel comfortable ever saying on a mic. Like, put it out there and sit with it. Be like, oh shit. And sometimes you might write and be like, wow, I can't believe this is in me and this actually makes me uncomfortable. But get it down and then burn it, because child, if they're coming for you and they listening. But and you take a step back, you look at it objectively. So I want us to answer some of these prompts, okay? And I'll be happy to go first. One of them, and this is one for me, what tends to make you envious? Do you envy, and why? Yes. I find that my shadow self, the thing that I'm most, I think, ashamed of and scared to admit is just how envious I can be.
That's interesting. I never would have pinned that on you.
Yeah. And it's not that I don't want people to win. I'm not envious, and I think it's because I've done work. In the past, absolutely, I've been jealous to the point where I'm like, fuck that. I'm not even going to support it. Like, because I work harder. I'm actually better equipped for that. I should be in this, role. Or it's coming from a place of, you had a fucking leg up. And I had to struggle. And this is why this didn't happen for me. And so a lot of jealousy can come from that. Or the way you got it was like so unethical. I don't even respect it. So I'm not even going to acknowledge it. Fuck that and fuck you. And it's really a deep reflection of my own frustration, capitalism, with my own frustration, and just with like wanting more opportunity, wanting to be seen, wanting more ease, and having this grass is greener thing. And it's something that I grew up with a parent like that, very much. The grass was always greener. It was never good enough over here. Very much like, blue collar, really struggled to provide for us, didn't have it easy. And she made it very known that, well, I gendered her, so obviously my mother. But she made it very known that, like, she was frustrated by that. So my shadow self, the main thing that sticks out to me that I'm conscious of, because I don't know if I haven't done this journaling to the point where the unconscious stuff, if I read it back, that I would be able to see, because that's the point of it. When you journal and you go back to it, you might be able to pinpoint, or a therapist would be able to pinpoint, like, hey, have you noticed X? Because I'm seeing that in the writing here. And I don't know if you're aware that this is in you. But yeah, envy is my shadow.
Your deadly sin.
Child, it's right there. It just be sitting there. And again, like I truly want people to win. Yeah. Truly.
Can I ask the last time you felt that envy, or a scenario in which you would feel envious, even if you don't want to specify it?
The last time I felt envy, I feel envious of I feel envious. I can feel envious of Mandy at times. I can feel envious of Bridget at times. I want to see them win, and that might be like, people are like, oh, that's supposed to be your friends. Yo, I want to see them win so bad. I root for them, and if I never was on their podcast again, I would still root for them. I want to see people win, but the difference in me now is that I want to see you win, even if it's before I do.
Yeah.
Even like that's the thing. In the past, I would have had a hard time with the friendship, because I'd have been like I'm just as good. I get on the mic and I can keep up with y'all. Like, why don't I have these opportunities? What have I? And part of that is you have to ask yourself, why don't you? What have you not done to be in that position? And you have to have these hard conversations with yourself. I don't feel envious of them now, but that's a scenario that would have definitely created envy. I think the last time I was envious that I can really think of, like where I felt it, was being when I used to perform, and I would go on these auditions, and I would have to, sit outside. Half the time I wouldn't even tell people you're auditioning, because then they get all excited, and then you don't know, you never get the fucking role half the time, and it's just a rejection after rejection. So I'd be outside quietly auditioning for shit, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I see, you know, people who I went to school with who, you know, are booking these gigs. And a huge part of it is because they have more resources. They don't have to stay up late and bust tables and work till 4 o'clock in the morning because their daddy was a football player or they came from a ton of money. And so they just have this apartment in New York that's paid for, and they can put all of their energy and effort into their craft. And they have an agent, and they have all of the best training and all this other shit. And it's like, I don't have that fucking leg up. So yeah, I might come to that audition. I'm not as warm. My voice isn't as warm, or, you know, I don't, whatever the case is.
You don't have the connections.
I don't have the
connect.
I don't have it, but I have the fucking talent.
Yeah.
You know, and it was evident in school. I beat you out and everything in school. I got every role there, but here you are. Now we in the real world.
Yeah.
And I would feel real fucking jealousy over that. It would be hard for me to celebrate their wins because I felt like I couldn't take myself out of it and just be happy. Now there's a young woman who, shout out to her, Adrienne Warren. We went to school together. Emmy Riverlamp, we all went to school. Emmy was fucking in Hamilton. Emmy's doing her fucking thing. She's amazing, wildly talented. Adrienne, she just won the Tony for Tina Marie. Was just in Woman King, doing her fucking thing. I could not be happier. Took me a lot to get there.
Got it.
That makes sense?
No, absolutely. And shout out to you for being able to openly admit that and recognize that too, because a lot of people go their whole career without ever realizing that they're in their own way because they can't be happy for others' opportunities, and also not recognizing that your time is your time, their time is their time, and just staying the course on your goal, your mission, your journey. So shout out to all the ladies that you mentioned. I want to get familiar with their work now, knowing that y'all were all in that space. But I think, you know, that was very honorable of you to be able to come forward and open up and openly admit that and say that, because I think a lot of us in this space, in particular creatives, you know, we all feel a sense of that at certain times, but, you know, we don't really have the gall to admit
it's the
it.
shadow self, baby.
But that's the thing. That's what's important to note, is that it's not unique to Antoinette. That's the idea of the shadow. Everyone has one. Everyone. It's just not true if someone's like, no, I don't feel anything. No, we all have. If there's a light in you, there's a shadow behind it, and that's the whole point. Is that what Antoinette is describing is very human. Very human to feel those things, those intrusive thoughts, those feelings, and they're only intrusive because we don't acknowledge them. We don't appreciate them. You know, we don't harness them, and that's what I believe shadow work to be. You know, it's the work to acknowledge and to appreciate it, and to say I am human, and to accept it, and say it's okay that I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this because I'm worth something, and that it's worth something, and now it can motivate me, and I can use it and harness it. And I think that, one, thank you for sharing that, right? Because that's really vulnerable to share, because it's a real life thing, real life situation that you lived, and those are real life people that you're reflecting on this on in retrospect. I think that's really beautiful. The fact that you're willing to share those things and to open up in that way.
Probably because I don't feel that way anymore.
Absolutely.
If I still was in the thick of it, I just want to be honest, I probably wouldn't share.
That's what shadow. But you're doing. This is shadow work right now, actively. That's what it is. It's saying this is an aspect of myself that I want to cast away. But instead of casting away, I'm going to acknowledge it out loud. And I'm going to say, no, I did feel that. And it's okay that I felt that, because I'm a human being. I'm a person. And because I do want those things, and I weren't able to attain them in that moment, but I will attain them.
Yeah.
And because you do the shadow work, right? Because you acknowledge it, you're able to say, and I will attain them. The problem is that if you were to cast that shadow away from you and not acknowledge it and not recognize those aspects of yourself, what'll happen is you get caught in the I don't have it, I don't have it, I don't have it. And resentment.
To add to that, doing the shadow work and saying and recognizing that forces me to say, why do you feel like that? And what does it mean for you that you don't have those things? Does it mean that you're a failure?
Yeah.
And so does it mean that you're not really that good, that deserving? What is the value, you know, that you're lacking there. And so the only pushback I'll get is if I don't get it, it still doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It still doesn't mean that I'm not of value. So I've gotten to that point of like, if my shit looks different from other people's, it doesn't make it less valuable. It's your stuff. And you have to separate that, at least for me.
Yeah. And I believe I believe those parts of what we're talking about are byproducts of shadow work. I think the shadow work itself is the acknowledgement of what it is and then learning to live with it. That's it. That's the shadow work. Everything after that is a different type of work. That's introspection. That's understanding how we can improve ourselves by way of shadow work.
Yeah, I argue if just know, for me, just knowing what the issue is and then you just know it.
Yeah.
I don't got time for that. Do something about it now.
Yeah,
like just knowing it. People are like, oh, I know this about me. Okay.
Yeah. You got to do the work after.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
How many people are like, yeah, that's just somebody I love dearly is like, you know me. I'll pop off. This is who I am, and I was like,
you accept that?
Well, girl, when you gonna switch it up a little bit now?
Yeah, but that's not even that's not shadow work because that's.
I know, but I'm just using that as an example.
I know what you're saying. Like the people that like I am who I am, so I am who I am, except who I am.
Popeye, baby.
That's not that. That's not inherently. That's just not what that is. It's the part of shadow work is the work. The part where you're saying, this is a part of me. How do I integrate it in a way that makes sense?
Right. I pop off. Why do I pop off? What do I need?
I don't even think the why is a part of shadow work.
See.
I think the why is what happens after. I think the shadow work is how do I integrate this into my life?
Definitely. I think we're saying the same thing. I'm saying to me, it's not valuable. So shadow work is less valuable if you don't then say.
Yeah.
How do I?
Yeah, it's a tool. Yeah.
SaVon, you next. I need you to talk because I see you. I don't know which question to ask you, so I'm just going to pick one that I think works.
Let's go for it.
Okay. I'll give you two to choose from.
Okay.
What tends to make you judgmental towards others? Or what memories are you ashamed of? Do the second one. You laughed.
No, I really wanted to think about them. The first one is
what tends to make you what tends to make you judgmental of others, and then what memories are you ashamed of?
I mean, I can answer both.
Okay.
The first one, I judge people who take things for granted. I have a really hard time understanding, connecting, and accepting people who, have some of the resources that most of us don't have and don't utilize it. It just doesn't sit right with me when people willfully neglect their opportunities. And that could just be having a roof over your head and a supportive family. It's not about the materialistic things of it. It's just more so, when I don't feel like you are intentional, I really, really stay away from people who are not intentional. And it doesn't mean perfection. I don't align intentions with perfection or knowing you have your shit together. I just think, if you're just moving out here just to be moving and not really being intentional about the people that you invite into your space, your circle, what you consume, I don't mesh well with those people. And I try to stay far away from them. And the longer I'm around them, the more tension and the more resentment I will build towards them, whether they realize it or not.
Why resentment?
Because I don't respect that.
Why?
Why?
We're gonna keep going deeper. Just answer it.
I don't respect people who, aren't intentional.
Why?
Because I'm intentional.
Okay. What does it mean about them if they're not intentional?
That they ain't doing shit. I don't know. What are you looking for? What
is it? What is it that you fear from being around people like that? Like, is there something that
I just don't want to be around that type of energy. I don't know.
What's the consequence? I guess. Like, what's the consequence of being around that energy for you?
I mean, you are who you hang around. So if I'm hanging around a bunch of people who are not intentional about what it is that they want from life or from themselves or for the people around them, that will naturally, infiltrate me and my psyche and who I want to be and where I want to go. I don't think it's as surface. I just think it's more of a lifestyle that I've tried to adopt. Like, if you don't have some type of intention of you or awareness of who you are or what it is you want to be or the things you want and don't want, I just don't really want to be around you.
Yeah.
Because then I don't know, I can't properly assess, what it is that you want from me. I like, why are we here? What are we doing? What do we have in common? What is it? Like, I just can't really align myself with that type of energy at this point in my life. Like, you have to be intentional about what it is that you want to be and want to accomplish while you're here on this earth. So I think that's where I can find myself judging people a bit when they walk around without that.
About the value they bring. So do you feel like anybody around you needs to bring value?
No, it doesn't necessarily have to bring value to me. Bring value to the world.
They need to be valuable.
Yeah, it have to be They have to have something that they offer to. It doesn't have to necessarily be me, but to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, you have to offer something. What like, you have to have a purpose or yearn for a purpose, even if you're still trying to figure it out. Everybody don't got it figured out.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to hold that against someone who doesn't have it figured out. But if you are okay, if you're willfully ignorant to not having shit figured out and you're just here, I don't really align with that type of energy. Like, I'm not, sounds crazy, I'm not much of a free spirit.
Yeah.
A very intentional person. And so I don't want to be around a bunch of free spirits because to me, that is weakness.
If I ask you,
whoa, you got it. He got to it right there.
If I ask you to turn that all the dialogue inward and ask yourself, if you were to show up in that way, what does that mean for you?
What way specifically?
In the way where you aren't bringing value to the world, in the way where you don't have anything to offer to the people around you, in a way where you're not being intentional. What does that mean for you, for SaVon? How does that make you feel? What are the things that you do? Like, you're judging others for those things. How do you judge yourself if you were to show up in those ways? If you were looking in the mirror, having a conversation with yourself because they were showing up in that way, what does that mean for you?
I would feel, and I hope I'm answering this correctly, but if I were to look in the mirror and I didn't see some of those things within myself, I would feel useless. I don't have anything to offer. I'm not, I'm not a productive member of society, of my circle, of the masses, maybe even. But it's like, I don't have anything to contribute. And I don't align with people who have nothing to contribute to anything that they're a part of.
But you, not people.
Me too.
Yeah, you. So if you don't feel like you're bringing value to the world, I'm just trying to understand what it is you're sharing. So if you don't feel like you're bringing value to the world, you feel useless.
Or even to my immediate family or circle, I feel, I'm not of use.
You feel like you're not
invaluable. I don't feel valuable. Let me not say useless. I don't like putting that on my name.
No, but
I don't feel valuable. I don't feel like I'm of value if I have nothing to offer. If I can't be a good friend, if you're having a tough day and you can't call me, if we had that type of relationship, I would feel invaluable. Like, all right, clearly I'm not doing something. It's not just about work. It's also how I show up for people, right? Like, being able to comfort someone's emotions, being a safe haven for them. Like, I don't.
So go ahead. Do you see the shadow work? So what Josh is doing is what we feel about other people, right? The way I got to envy was that I was looking at them and I was judging them and being like, that shit was easy for you. That was this, that was that, and all that stuff. But I had to turn it around on myself and say, why is this what you're projecting onto them when you actually don't really know? So that's resulting into envy. So what's happening here is you said a lot. You said, and nothing's bad at all. But you said, like, people who have, what did you say? Like, resources, and they take them for granted. So like, it's similar to me. It sounds of like, okay, you got a fucking leg up and you're not even being useful or valuable. There's a little bit of resentment. It seems there. And then when you talk about the value and it's like, well, if you're just this free spirit and you don't have intentions, then you're useless.
Stay the fuck away from me.
Right. So stay the fuck away from me is like, well, there's fear rooted in there. What I hear is there's fear of like, if I don't produce, if I don't show up, what am I here for? I'm not valuable. And so I feel like maybe part of your shadow work or your shadow self is that kind of fear of being useless,
Mm-hmm.
of being lost, and kind of not having your footing,
Mm-hmm.
and not being successful, not being this thing of whatever success is.
I'll tell you the word that it is.
Okay.
And it's a word that has haunted me. And it's aligned with everything you just said. And it just put it in perspective because it's not necessarily about success, although I can understand why. It's the fear of being disposable.
Oh.
It's disposable. That is the shadow work.
Oh,
That's
SaVon.
that's such a common feeling in men.
That's what it is. It's disposable.
Yeah. It's not having utility
Yeah, it's not necessarily success
and
because
impact.
even in explaining it, I kept saying, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you can do for me. It's not about that. It's just being disposable. I can't. That's one of my biggest fears. Probably is the biggest fear. I think that's another reason, I kind of always go back to just like relationships, but relationships are difficult for me because I feel like where we are today, everybody is so disposable because of circumstance. And, I like to connect in a real way. And so it's hard for me to connect in that way because of the fear of being disposable.
SaVon the lover. I hear you. That was a he said disposable. That
Yeah,
that
that's what it
crushes
is.
me.
Yeah, it's not about success. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, the success
or
thing is the
monetary.
byproduct of it.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
success thing is like, all right, well, that will put the period at the end. That'll
yeah.
prove that I'm not disposable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to know so badly what made you feel disposable, but
What do
that's
you?
a whole other thing.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. Like I think that there's an opportunity for you in
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that even if when this comes out and you could listen back to what it was that you were sharing,
Mm-hmm.
I think it might give you a lot of insight into who you choose to judge and why you choose to judge them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll help you look at parts of yourself and become maybe a little bit more accepting of parts of yourself that deserve a little bit more compassion. And then also be able to use some of those parts of yourself to improve upon whatever it is you want to improve upon.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's thank you
No
for
problem.
sharing.
Absolutely.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Are there people that you have met that you feel like are disposable?
I feel like I've been disposed at
Mm.
certain points in my life by people that I cared about in a deep way. And like I said, I don't really, it's funny. I was talking to someone when I was younger. One of my first jobs, I was working at a sneaker store, and I was about maybe 16, 17 years old. So I don't really know much about shit. I'm just working at the sneaker store, and I was doing really well at my job, one of the top salespeople or whatever. And one of my older cousins, he got transferred to the sneaker store that I worked at. So now I'm working with one of my older cousins. So we have a little bit better relationship than just a regular coworker. And one day it was kind of dead in the store, and we were just sitting along the sneaker wall, and we were talking, and joking around. And he's very charismatic, and he said to me, I was about maybe 17, no older than 18. He was like, "You're not very personable." And at the time, I didn't know I didn't know what the word meant. I was like, "What the fuck this nigga talking about?" Like, bro, we here at work. What are you talking about? And he was just like, you're not a personable person. And that always kind of stuck with me in social settings because, going back to how you felt envious, there's been times where I felt envious of people who were able to come outside of themselves in certain rooms. Whereas I am me through and through. I don't really like to change too much. This is who I am. I show up in this way. My personality, my morals, my ethics, my integrity is something that, I stand in. And, when he said that to me, it took me years to really unpack that. And what I hear now today when he says that is, I don't allow people to penetrate who I am. I don't allow people to penetrate certain layers of the person that I know I am, is because I try to protect the rawness of the type of love that I like to give to people. And it's not about women, relationships, romantic, just in general. On a previous episode, I talked about how my friend said he needed me. I called out of work. It's like that type of relationship, that type of commitment that I give to people that I care about.
Yeah.
And I try to protect that. And when I feel like there's been moments in my life where that's been taken for granted or disposed of very easily, it's just one of the few feelings that I don't really care to feel again, and I don't really put myself in a position to feel it.
Would you mind? Would you mind if I'm a little honest with you right now?
Mhm.
There's a duality happening in you right now that I want to recognize, and you take it with a grain of salt because I'm just an outside person looking at what you're giving me.
Mhm.
You share this fear of being disposable,
Mhm.
this fear of being disposed of and not having value,
Mhm.
and it sounds like what I would describe as your shadow in this moment, or this aspect of your shadow, would be that you dispose of people,
Mm.
which is interesting to me because what you are afraid of most, you dole out
Mhm.
easily. That's something to think about.
It's real shit.
That's something
But that's the shadow work.
yeah, something to. I'm not
That's
sure.
real.
I don't
No.
know if you were able to shift that,
Mhm.
to perceive it that way. I wasn't sure if you were perceiving it that
I
way. That's why
wasn't.
I wanted to say it out loud because I feel like there's value there for you.
Mhm.
Like and I wanted to do it as gently as possible. But I think that like if you were to just take some time to like be like, oh shit, you know what?
Mhm.
There's something happening here.
Yeah,
I think that shit would be super valuable to you.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think you hit it right on the head. Yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting.
I see that.
Appreciate you, bro, for
No
sharing.
problem. Not a
No,
problem at
it's
all.
vulnerable
No,
stuff,
it's so
man.
cool.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Interesting.
Real
I like
real
it.
time work. I don't know what to ask you, child.
All
What
of
do
them.
I ask? What do I ask the man? He Freud himself. Let me think.
No, I don't, actually, it was the opposite. He thought everything was sex.
Mm.
Young was like, I was your student, but I ain't fucking with this.
Well,
Everything's dicks to
I
you.
only knew Freud's name. Sorry.
No, I'm making jokes.
I don't know what to ask you. Let me think. Give me one moment, everyone.
I've done shadow work practice, so I can share like 4 aspects of my personality I don't really fuck with.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if it makes it easier.
I mean, I did want to ask you a question. Okay.
Ask. You can do whatever. I like this stuff. So
what
for
are the
me,
worst traits someone can have according to you, and when have you demonstrated those traits?
this is great. I think like people with no work ethic,
Mhm.
people who lie, people who are inauthentic, and I think those 3 traits are things that I really fucking hate in other people. And I think it's because there are moments where I show up that way and I hate it in myself.
Mm.
I think that when I lie, I resent myself for doing it because it means I'm afraid. I think that when I don't feel like someone has good work ethic, it's because I recognize that I'm not working as hard as I can. And I think that when someone's showing up inauthentically and I feel it, it's because I know that there are moments where I don't show up as my full self.
Mm.
So I think that there is 100% a part of me, my shadow, that follows me around and that I try to keep right here tucked under my arm to remind myself that give grace because you've lied when you were afraid.
Mhm.
You have a tendency to lie when you want to get out of something or you're afraid of something. You don't work as hard as you can, and sometimes you're a little bit of a gecko. Yeah, you can change your skin depending on the circumstance. So
Chameleon, I think.
a chameleon. There we go. I'm sorry.
No, you good.
It's like a
A
gecko.
gecko. I know I fucked up. More of a chameleon, where like you shift your skin a little bit depending on the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So don't judge someone else for maybe coming across a little inauthentic, or someone who's telling a lie because they're afraid, or someone who's maybe not working as hard because they're tired.
Mm.
And I've recognized those things in myself because those are huge triggers for me. I judge people for those aspects of their personality, and I have for a long time tried to lie to myself and pretend that they didn't exist in me, and I repressed them.
Mm.
And I used to be like lying, no way, me. inauthenticity, me not work hard. No way, that's not me. But that's not true. Those are fundamental parts of myself. Those are parts of myself that exist. They're there, just like every other negative aspect. But those are the three that stand out the most, because those are the three that I struggle with the most. Those are the ones where I have to intentionally choose to not do. So when I'm in a situation and I'm tired because I'm in school and I have 2 kids and I run a business and I have a job and I have a podcast and I'm like, I'm tired, I have to be like, work hard, motherfucker, because you don't want to right now. When I'm in a situation where I don't want to maybe work or do a job with a client and I want to be like, oh, no, I have a medical emergency. I'm like, you're going to lie? Why are you lying? You have no reason to lie. I have to work on it because my baser self, my primordial self, wants to give in to my instincts, my lie to make it easy. Don't work hard because it's easy. Be inauthentic here because everything will go smooth. I have to make sure I intentionally choose to not give in to those aspects of me. And then I just let them hang with me so that I can recognize them. Because if they were further away, it'd be harder to see them. So,
I like that.
yeah.
I respect that a lot. I think doing this and as you were speaking, I was just thinking about, some of the things that you said prior to, which is maybe I do dispose of people, right? I thought about all of the times I might have disposed of a few people prematurely or just done it for sport at times, maybe even. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I subscribe to the thinking of keeping that close or keeping it far away. And again, I'm still learning, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I want to keep that close to me as a daily reminder almost. Whereas if I kind of push it away, you know, subconsciously I'm always going to know that it exists, but I don't want it near me. It's like, no, stay away,
Yeah.
leave me alone. I don't want to be reminded of it. I don't want to participate in it. So I think that's probably going to be my next step in my next phase of
Yeah.
figuring out this whole disposable thing within myself.
Yeah. You morph the conceptualization of it. Keeping it close may be something that feels a little bit like not good for you because it then feels like that you can take it on.
Yeah.
Versus instead of saying keeping it close, just use it as a reminder.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Shadow work. Again, good people, if you want to check out these prompts to get your journal on, they can be found on betterup.com. And if you just Google 27 shadow work prompts to kickstart your healing journey. Or, child, get a therapist. Get a therapist and be like, because there's therapists that actually specialize in shadow work. But a big aspect of it is also, I want to just make sure that we mention, to avoid the shame of it. It's really hard to avoid being ashamed of your dark places. But there are some loving words of affirmation that are also offered on this website, BetterUp. And it goes a little something like this. I trust in you. This is you looking in the mirror, by the way. I believe in you. I'm glad that you're in my life. You are worthy of love. You are enough. You deserve to be happy. You have a lot to offer. And this is you not only looking in the mirror, but this is also you directly talking to your shadow self. There are some folks that also say to write a letter to your shadow self once you've uncovered what that is and to like talk to it. And I think that's interesting because when you're talking to it, I feel like it makes it other and we're trying to bring it in. But I'll try it and see what comes up for me. But it's definitely a practice that some people have found to be really helpful.
Yeah.
And to recognize when your shadow is like on and popping. For me, this kind of sums it up. Mateo Soul, shout out to him, author, The Awakened Empath. Makes sense for me. But he says your shadow is a dark omen, a powerful teacher that reveals to you the places in your life where you are energetically blocked, When you continue to ignore these signs, you perpetuate the cycle of your suffering. And we trying to get off that merry-go-round or whatever. So like, get in touch with your shadow. Josh, I think that there's a lot more to uncover with shadow work and shadow selves. And I'm excited for you to bring us home in that. Because you know more about it than all of us. And so even in the conversations leading up to us recording, I know that there's like, this is an overview. This is not like a deep dive in.
Yeah.
And you can definitely help us deep dive.
Yeah, I would love to revisit this at some point and go deeper into it. I think just to share, I think a quote that helps me kind of recognize my shadow and to feed it in the most loving of ways was, everyone deserves love simply because they exist.
That part.
So your shadow, if you recognize it as a separate entity, deserves love simply because it exists.
Which means it cannot be, you are innately not disposable.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, but I love this. And to anybody listening, this is it's a topic that I really enjoy. It's an aspect of psychology that I really enjoy. And I think that anybody can benefit from this. I just think that it's hard. You know, I think that this episode itself kind of demonstrated that. It's not easy to be, there's introspection, and then there's truly looking at yourself in a mirror and forcing yourself to see the parts of yourself that maybe you don't like. And sometimes, and me and my very close friends used to say this thing to each other when we were on the phone or we were in person. Whenever we complimented each other, we would say, "You're just a mirror." So if I told my best friend, I was like, "I love you, my brother," he would say, "I'm a mirror." But if we also had something where we were disagreeing, I'm a mirror. And the idea behind that was whatever it is that you're seeing that you don't like probably exists in you too. So, you know,
that's a bar.
Something to think about.
I want to challenge people to do the work on this one too. I know a lot of the episodes that we put out, you know, is a little bit more relatable, and there's not an exercise for you. What's so funny? I said something funny.
No, keep going.
Okay,
SaVon.
I'm sorry. I just want to challenge people to do the exercises.
Yeah.
If there's a way to go on and do the exercises. I know we focused on attachment styles earlier in the season, and there's a way for you to find out what your attachment style is. I would love for those listening who aren't as experienced with this to, you know, participate in the exercise of figuring out, you know, what their shadows consist of.
Yeah.
Me and my shadow. Okay.
You gonna play that out? You gonna play us out?
No, hell no. All right. Well, with that, sounds like y'all have a lot of things to do. We're going to get out of here. And I don't know how to end. I thought I was ending with my fine quote.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Email us your parts of your shadow. I want to email us. I want that.
I don't know if I want to hear.
I want to hear all the business.
Like, my shadow is that. Never mind.
Bye,
Could get tricky real quick. All right. Bye, y'all. No shame.